Hello everyone, it is I, Chastity again, and welcome to my chess stream, where I try to teach the things I know about the game of chess. My favorite openings, my favorite strategies, the pros and cons of different things, and I promise I'm working harder at trying to be concise and get the most relevant information in the videos with less rambling. That's what I'm trying to do. And I am actually using Firefox instead of Edge this time because Microsoft Edge seems to have some conflicts with OBS Studio. I'm not sure why that is, but enough about that. I'm going to get into the Pyramid of Pawns. What is it? Why should you or shouldn't you use it? And what's so great about it? And why is it part of the London and Collie systems? Now, here's what I'm going to do. Instead of trying to get into the different names of openings, because that's confusing information for people, especially if you're new to chess, you're not going to remember the names of openings. So I'm going to not try to reference openings from now on in this video. Instead, I'm going to explain to you the principles behind the Pyramid of Pawns. And I hope I can do a good job at it too. So, I'm at the analysis board on livechess.org here. And here's the thing. I'm going to show you the basic idea of a pawn pyramid. I'm going to move both the black and the white pieces in a specific order. So if you see what I'm doing here, both white and black have each moved 3 pawns. The queen's pawn is moved 1 square forward, and then the 2 pawns next to that have moved 1 square forward. So queen's pawn 2 squares, the others to the side 1 square. Now, because pawns capture diagonally in chess, this is kind of the point. The point of this is that if something were to capture, let's say, for example, the front pawn, well, then either one of the other pawns could capture it back. That's part of the beauty of this. So I need to find a way to demonstrate this. So let's say, for example, it doesn't matter, for the purpose of this, it doesn't matter if you're playing as white or black. Both sides can play a pyramid of pawns, and the same basic things can happen. So let's say that both sides decide to, let's just say, move out their knights. That could totally happen. Then all kinds of bizarre things could happen. Let's say that after building a pyramid of pawns, let's suppose that white wanted to do something crazy. I'm thinking of the name of an opening right now, but I'm not going to say it. You guys know what it is. It's also the name of a Netflix show. So let's suppose this happens. Let's suppose that white breaks the pyramid of pawns and does this. Well, here's the thing. Doing so gives black a chance to put the king in check. Now, black can get out of this. It can put a knight in the way, or it could put a bishop in the way, like this. However, that's not as good as leaving the pawn right where it is. Because if the pawn is left here, well then, black cannot put the king in check. The purpose of the pyramid of pawns structured like this is to prevent your king from being put in check. Your king is actually well protected by this structure. It can't be attacked from the front, it can't be attacked diagonally, and the queen and the bishop have a chance to get out. That's part of what's so cool about this. But supposing you do have a pyramid of pawns, is there a way to attack it? Well, of course there is, but it's difficult. Because, I mean, let's take, for example, so let's say it's white's turn here. Well, this is going to be difficult because I mean, yeah, there's places to go. And like, for example, this knight has a place it can go, and this is totally fine. But this is what's so crazy about it. Besides protecting the king, another thing about the pyramid of pawns is it's a structure that allows the bishop to get out onto a square here. So now this bishop here, it attacks the knight, but it controls two different diagonals. Now keep in mind, white can do the exact same thing with its bishop. So we have this type of a game here. It's sort of a closed position where only certain pieces are allowed to move, and it makes calculating things much, much easier. So here's the thing. Black can totally capture this knight, but in so doing so, it's sacrificing a bishop. So there's that. That can totally happen. And I mean, it's a trade. It is what it is, trading a bishop to get rid of a knight. But notice that doing this breaks the pawn pyramid. Now, that's okay. You can break the pawn pyramid when and if you want to. But let's take a step back. Let's take a step back here. And let's take, for example, this is probably not going to happen in a real game. It probably won't happen. Because hopefully your opponent won't be dumb enough to do this type of a thing. But let's say that let's have some moves happen here. Let's just have some moves happen here for the sake of it. Okay, so let's say this knight moves here. Okay, this is going to be fun. And let's suppose that the queen decides, hey, I'm going to take that knight. Now, this knight can also take that knight, but we're going to ignore that for right now. Let's say that someone was dumb enough to bring out their queen early. Trust me, guys, I've been guilty of this myself. And let's suppose that, well, it's actually, you know what? I need to back up. I need to back up further. I want to show a better example of this. Okay. So here we have some, we're going to move some things out here. Let's say that we have a bishop come out here, we have a knight come out here, and let's just say that, more things happen here. Let's say pieces just kept moving. I'm going to show now, here we have a situation here. Now we have a situation where white captures this, it's going to capture this knight. Now here's what's interesting about this. This could happen. So white has captured that knight with their queen. So white's up ahead in material, right? Well, here's one of the things that can make the pyramid of pawns a little bit deadly. So let's say that black decides to move this pawn forward. And this pawn is what has moved here. And then white is deciding, okay, well, do I want to take this pawn with my pawn, or do I want to wait for this pawn to capture and then capture back? It's hard to know. But let's suppose that white does not notice something. Let's say the white takes this, and white completely fails to notice that this bishop was in line with the queen. And then black gets to take the queen. See, one of the things about it is that this pyramid of pawns, the pawns are kind of the heart and soul of chess. People think, well, the pawns are weak. They can only move one square at a time, with the exception of the first turn, and they capture weird with the diagonals. But what people are missing is there's 8 pawns on each side. And often it will come down to whoever has the most pawns remaining near the end of the game often wins, because pawns can become queens. So never underestimate the power of pawns. And it's actually a really good idea to try to protect your pawns. Because if you just lose all your pawns because you think they're not valuable pieces, you may regret it because you may need them near the end of the game. But completely aside from that, let's say that something different happened entirely. Let's just say that, other pieces say they start moving out here. So let's say this piece moved here, and then the different players keep making their moves. Now here's what's interesting. Notice this. Black has the option with this pawn to capture this pawn. Now, there are several different options here. Of course, in this specific situation, the queen could come and capture this pawn, which is totally fine, of course. But in most of the cases, your queen's not going to be out here. That was just a specific example. And you have two different pawns that can capture here. Now, you may wonder, well, which pawn should you capture this pawn with? Well, you could use this pawn, but by doing so, your king gets put in check, and then you're forced to make a choice of moving the king or putting some other valuable piece in the way, which of course will get captured. But if you move your king, then you forfeit the chance to castle, because you can only castle if neither the king nor the specific rook you're castling with have moved before. So what I'm going to tell you, my professional opinion, is that it's a bad idea to capture with the pawn that is protecting your king from a bishop attack. So it's actually better to use this pawn, because doing so allows this bishop to get out later on. And so if there is a piece in the way, somewhere on this diagonal, this bishop could then start attacking it. But that's the thing, the pyramid of pawns is not an opening in and of itself. The pyramid of pawns is just a basic structure that is a good way to start the game. It's just a good way to start the game. So let's just look at our situation here. Both sides have a pyramid of pawns. This allows the queen to get out on the diagonals. It allows the bishop to go here and take control of these diagonals. Now, in this case, this bishop is trapped, but that's only temporarily. And another thing we can do, let's refresh the whole analysis board, and let's try something else. I'm going to show you a different way of doing this. So let's say both sides move the queen's pawn, but then they move their bishops out. Well, if they move their bishops out, then as they continue to build the pyramid pawn structure, then the bishops are on the outside rather than the inside. Now, this isn't necessarily better or worse. Personally, I think this is better myself, but that's my just opinion as a chess player, and the fact that I've won more games by bringing the bishop out than I have by leaving it trapped in. But really, it's your choice. So, what does this position allow us to do? Well, the pyramid of pawn structure is exactly the same, but what we have here is we have bishops that are in line with the knights. So the bishop, for instance, can attack this knight. Then this means that the opponent has the chance to capture this bishop either with the rook or with the queen. Well, which should they use? I mean, that's anybody's guess, but keep in mind that if the rook captures it, well, then you can't castle with that rook. And keep in mind that you could also capture with the queen. But that limits the queen's options because of the fact that, well, this queen was on this diagonal, and now it can only be on this diagonal, whereas before it controlled two different diagonal directions here. But it doesn't make that much of a difference unless you're planning on castling. Because obviously, let's continue a few moves. So white decides to do this and scare away this bishop. Of course, this bishop will probably move out of the way here or something like that. And let's suppose that, well, it's, when I try to play the moves for both sides. I get myself very confused because I'm fighting against myself. I am my own worst enemy when I play chess with myself. But anyway, the idea is that because black captured that bishop with the queen, it still retains the ability to castle later. But which side you castle on really depends on the state of the board and what is happening in the game in general. Castling, people try to say castle early, but that is not my advice personally. My advice is wait until you know what your opponent is trying to do and then castle to stop it. Because if you see that your opponent is trying to attack one side of the board, it might be good to castle your king to the opposite side. I mean, I feel like that's some pretty solid advice if you get what I'm saying. But yeah, so that's the but regardless of what you do with the other pieces, the pyramid of pawns is just a simple method. It's a good way to start the first few moves of the game, and it's something that I always do. In all of my games, it's just something that I do. Maybe it's a little bit too predictable, but it's kind of the thing that I like to do because I like being able to get my queen and bishops out into strange squares. But I was going to say something. What was I about to say? So, there is something I want to talk about with the Pyramid of Pawns. Now, you may wonder, why is the Pyramid of Pawns, why does it start with the Queen's Pawn? Well, I can show you why. Because what happens if the sides try to build a pyramid of pawns starting with the King's Pawn? I mean, take a look at this. Well, now look at this here. The king is not protected. You see how the king is not protected here? That's because the kings can be attacked on the diagonals. And that can be a little bit dangerous sometimes. So this isn't necessarily a losing position, but it does have a few key issues. The fact is your bishops are trapped. This bishop is actually trapped when you do this. Now this bishop can get out, but then this bishop happens to be trapped. And the queen is completely trapped regardless. So when you try to use a king's pawn 2 squares forward and then build a pyramid behind it, well then you completely trap your queen. Your queen just can't do anything. So then you end up forced to, start breaking your pyramid of pawns, and things can happen, absolutely. But it's just not as good. Whereas the pyramid of pawns built with the queen's pawn, just solid. It's just a very solid thing to do because your queen and your bishops can just get out. And it's kind of hard to really explain without an example game where it actually works. So I never know how this is going to go. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to play a live chess game and use the pyramid of pawns, and then let's see how it goes. I'm going to try. Let's see here. Let's try a 5-minute blitz game. Let's try it. I don't know if we'll be playing black or white, but, I'm playing white. Okay, let's start out. Let's just totally start out by building a pyramid of pawns. Let's try this. Will my opponent move or will they forfeit the game? Okay, there we go. I'm going to first make a defense for my king so it can't be put in check from that direction. Then I'm just going to finish building my pyramid. So my 3 moves, my pawn pyramid is complete. Ooh, I just got, We got a comment from Harbor's Resentment. Nice. Thank you for the follow. I'm very excited to have a new follower. Now you see, because I did this, my pyramid allows my bishop to get out here. So now I've got the knight pinned. I can get rid of this knight. Yes, black can put the bishop behind the knight, but that's not going to stop me from destroying the knight. Oh, but they did something else. So that's a little weird. That is very weird, honestly. But I'm gonna just leave that as is for now. Let's see how this game goes. How will this blitz game go? All right. Now that knight is pinned. It can't move, but I'm attacking it with this knight. Ooh, that's... Oh, okay. I see. Let's capture the knight. Yeah, I'm going to capture the knight. Oh, okay. Now I get to capture the pawn, put the king in check, and fork with the rook. Okay, there we go. I just destroyed my opponent's rook. Now, this is a good game so far, guys. This is really good because I already gained the advantage. Now, part of it was the pyramid of pawns. It's not all due to the credit of the pyramid of pawns, but I was able to just bring out my bishop and immediately attack that knight. So the pyramid of pawns certainly facilitated this victory.